Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Endurance Physios podcast. My name is Dr. Sam Rockwater. I'm joined, as always, by Dr. Will Gonzaba. How you doing, Will?
Howdy, Sam. What's going on, man?
Oh, not much. Today's episode, we talk about how to travel to a race. We're going to kind of talk about different travel tips, different things that knowledge and tips that we've gained over the years of traveling to a lot of these races, and also too, I'll kind of touch on my experience with Team USA and how they travel to races and some of the tips I've kind of picked up from them, which should be pretty entertaining, I think, for most people. But we're going to talk today about running races, cycling races, and then triathlons, because those are kind of like the big three when we start talking about endurance sports. Running races, super easy to travel to. All you need is your run shoes, your outfit, and you go. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So those tend to be pretty easy. I know from experience, at least in my mind, making sure that you have a great pair of socks to race in also can make or break a race. So make sure you pack a couple pairs of really prime socks. I don't know if you have any other tips for running races, because they're so easy to do. You just hop on a plane or hop in your car and bring your running shoes and go.
No, other than this applies to bikes too, but nutrition, and then for running, don't forget your hydration belts if you're running with those. I think those are more popular these days. But otherwise, yeah, just don't forget your shoes, and you could probably make anything happen, even if you get there and forget something.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, run races, super easy. Let's talk about
Easy.
cycling, because that's a little more challenging. Yeah,
Yep.
that's a little bit more challenging. Mainly when we talk about like traveling to a cycling race, you have a little bit more gear that you need. So you need your cycling shoes, you need your helmet, you need your bibs or bike shorts if you wear those, but more than likely bibs. You need your jersey, you need some nutrition and all that stuff. But you also have this big piece of equipment that you have to carry and take there, and that's called your bike or your bicycle. And we're going to assume that you're going to fly, that you're flying to a race, because taking off a front wheel and hopping in your car or just sliding in the back. I have a truck. I just slide my bike in the back of the truck and close the bed cover and we're good. But we're going to assume that you're flying, and so you need to learn how to pack your bike. So I think we want to kind of talk about like hard case versus soft case. We also want to talk about like how to best kind of protect your bike as well. Let's start with hard case versus a soft case. And first,
Mm-hmm.
before even that, Will, have you ever traveled or packed your bike somewhere, and did you use a hard case or a soft case?
Yeah, I've done it twice. Actually, both with you. Both the times we went with Portland. Both the times
Oh,
we've been in
really?
Portland. Yeah, those are the only
Nice.
times I think I've flown with my bike. Yes, that actually dovetails into this perfectly. I've used the same soft case both times. Damn, I'm forgetting the name of the brand. That's like the brand for soft case bike bags.
That's all right.
What is it?
Ebok?
It's the main one. Ebok.
Ebok?
Yeah. That
Ebok.
yeah, that's the one. I borrowed it from my friend. The first time I used it, well, both times I used it, I guess it worked okay. The first time, I didn't like wrap the tubing on the bike well enough, and so unfortunately, my brand new custom painted gunner frame got scratched by the airline. But the second time around, I wrapped everything much better, and I know the second time around, I just wrapped everything better, and it worked fine. So that was it. I remember you showed up. You had like a pretty sweet hard case, though, right?
Yeah, so I have used both a soft case and a hard case. I've used a soft case before. Absolutely nothing wrong with them. We'll go over kind of pros and cons of them here in a minute, but I currently have a hard case. The protection on them is just so much better. They're not going to get scratched. They're not going to get crushed a whole lot. Like it's pretty pretty easy. For those of you that don't know, a hard case versus a soft case essentially is like fabric has a zipper. Oftentimes, a soft case is less rigid, um, which also increases your chance of like breaking or damage, like what you were mentioning, scuffing paint, stuff like that. Um, the biggest advantage of it is that you can fold it up. It's easier to pack more into that case as well. You can kind of roll it up and put it in the corner a little bit. But you can also throw. It's much easier to throw your helmet in there. It's much easier to throw your cycling shoes in there. It's much easier to throw other clothes, a spare set of wheels, and stuff like that. Where you go to a hard case, and essentially what it is it's a um, the case that I have is like a carbon fiber slash plastic. Most of the cases that are hard are like a hard plastic. They're rigid, um, which of course gives you less chance of damage, but you don't have as much storage space in them, so you can't like fit extra things in them. Normally, everything has like a little place, and it's supposed to be there. Um, they can be heavier and a little bit sometimes harder to move around because they are so like bulky and have no give. Um, so I mean, there's pros and cons to each one. I just prefer a hard case because I just worst thing possible is that you take the time, train, travel to a race, you have hotel, airfare, food, the race fee, and then you get there and then your bike is broke. And so that's the last thing that I want when I'm traveling to an event is to have my bike all of a sudden not like broke or has like a micro fracture, hairline fracture, or anything like that. So I personally prefer a hard case, um, but it's also a pain in the butt to store whenever I don't have a bike race. So when I do travel with my bike once, twice a year, because I don't travel with it a ton, it is a pain in the butt to like store that thing. It just essentially sits in our spare bedroom closet and takes up space. So I know my wife would prefer me to have a soft one and be able to throw it in the garage somewhere, but it just doesn't happen. So I don't know if you have a preference,
I
Will, between hard
mean,
and soft, or I know you've only had soft cases, but
I will say, I mean, that soft case closes up to an extent. It doesn't. It's not like tiny. You can't like roll it up. Like it still need a
yeah,
pretty big closet or your garage because like the bottom of it is like semi rigid, I would say. So and some
yeah,
of the support that
hard
it has
plastic
within the
sometimes.
case, like with prevent you, yeah. So it's they're still bulky, right? They're still bulky either way.
Yeah,
Having used
smaller,
the
but
soft
not.
case, yeah, yeah, but still not great. Having used the soft case
Yeah,
twice, my second experience with it was a lot better because I was just better at packing it and whatever, and it worked fine. I personally need to buy something for myself right now, and I'm gonna probably look into a hard case just because I'm sure they're more expensive, but I'd rather just have the added security knowing that like my bike isn't going to get damaged because either way it's going to be expensive, but I'd rather pay that than have to pay for a new frame. So I would probably invest in the hard case. Granted, I've never used one, but from what I've seen of yours, I would rather have that.
yeah. Make sure, Will, when you buy one, oftentimes they have like a road bike, quote unquote, one, and then a mountain bike, quote unquote, one. Go with the mountain bike or the bigger of the two. You'll never
Okay.
be mad about the extra space, because I know I had a road bike one, and I actually had to, and my bike for Leadville when I did Leadville 100 2 years ago, 3 years ago, um, it didn't fit in my road bike one, and so I was
Mm,
like and also too, this was like a week before. I was like, all right, I'm gonna just double check and pack it up, whatever. I'm gonna pack it up. Everything's good, new tires, fresh sealant, blah blah blah, and went out for one ride. And then I'm like, all right, I'm gonna pack it up. And luckily I packed it 2 days before, and it did not fit. And I was
mm.
scrambling to try and find a bike case, and I ended up actually finding somebody who did have one that I could use, which was very clutch. So, um, but otherwise, though, I did not, because I had a quote unquote road bike case. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit a mountain bike. So if you're ever potentially
But
going to travel with your mountain bike, get a mountain bike one or get the larger of the two. Yeah. Pro tip.
Yeah, good to know. Good to know. I mean, I'm buying it to travel with my mountain bike, so it's good to know. I didn't realize there were differences because I haven't shopped for them yet. But I think your story brings up a good point, and that is not to wait to the last minute to start packing your bike, and to account for having to build up your bike and things potentially going wrong with that when you're picking your arrival date to your destination. So if it can work out, like I probably wouldn't land the day before a race, have to put your bike together because
Yep.
that does not account for any error in anything breaking and needing to get to a bike
Mm-hmm.
shop and getting a replacement or whatever you need. So at least a full day. You want to get there 2 days before your event and when you need that bike ready for. And also, like, I do everything in advance, kind of like Sam. Like, I would not wait like the morning of your flight to start breaking down that bike and packing it up unless you are a pro and you've done it a million times, because it takes time. Even if you're gonna, wrapping everything, it is relatively simple. But like the first time I packed up that soft bike bag, like just figuring out where all the Velcro straps go and all that stuff, like it takes time. So don't wait to the last minute to pack, and don't arrive last minute before your flight, because you don't want to have that extra stress on yourself if anything goes wrong.
Yeah. There's definitely a learning curve to packing your bike and making it fit how it's exactly supposed to. I've had 3 or 4 different cases that I've used, and all of them packed totally differently, like completely differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something that's very important to do. The other thing that I would also say too, ahead of time, try and find a local bike shop and
Mm-hmm.
just make sure that there's one available where it is, blah blah blah. I made sure that when I landed in Leadville, or for Leadville I landed in Denver, and then we drove up, and I made sure to pack, or to essentially assemble my bike down in Denver before I went up into the mountains when there's only one bike shop available, versus Denver. If I need something, like if I call enough bike shops, I'll find whatever I need, whatever random
Mm-hmm.
specialty part. If, derailleur hanger happened to break and so did my spare or whatever, like if it happened to break, then that would be, something to, I could find it somewhere. So that brings up another important point too. Pack an extra derailleur hanger if you're doing an off-road race, or even an on-road race for that matter.
So can I interject a story here? Do you remember
Fire.
when we went to Portland and we went to Port? So Sam and I go to Portland for this bike fitting course 2 years ago, and we get there the same day. We're getting to the Airbnb. We're building up our bikes to go out for a ride that afternoon, and Sam's helping me out with something on my rear wheel, and he broke my derailleur hanger, the rear derailleur, and he tried to play it off as if he didn't, but he totally did. Do you remember that?
It slipped my mind, Will. Slipped my mind. Go ahead. Continue with your story, your fake
No,
story.
it's all right. It was hanging on by a thread. If you remember,
Yeah, it
like
happened.
anything,
It
like the wind
happens.
was going to
Yeah,
blow
yeah.
and that thing
It
was going to break.
happens.
But it worked out. It worked out. That in that scenario, it worked out fine because the axle type. So like it all held into place, and it was not a ruin. Didn't ruin my trip at all. But yes, I agree with Sam. Pack an extra. Or on
Yeah.
that, like make sure you don't forget to pack your bike tools. Like you're gonna need your bike tools to disassemble everything, all your wrenches and pedal wrenches if you're using that, and like make sure you bring those back with you, or fly with them so you can reassemble and then retake the bike apart when you're there, because that would also suck if you forgot to pack your tools.
Yeah. Makes it really hard to reassemble your bike if you don't have the proper tools.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
Awesome. We talked about quite a few tips here. Let's talk about like how to pack the bike. So I
Okay.
know that people will talk about all sorts of different things. I've seen people bubble wrap a bike before. My favorite, because it's super simple and super easy and provides a lot of protection, is I'll actually go to like your local hardware store, Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever, and I'll actually go and get pipe insulation. And then if you get the right size pipe insulation, you get the oversized or whatever pipe insulation, and then you can actually put that. You just open it up and then put it around all the tubes of your bikes, your down tube, your top tube, chain stay, seat stay. I'll put it on both legs of the fork. And then I'll also take some sort of tape. I'll normally do like a masking tape of some sort. I don't need it stuck on there like with duct tape because that leaves residue. All I need is something just super light to essentially just hold it in place. It's not going to have a whole lot of shaking, but that tends to be super helpful. One thing that I know is super easy, doesn't take up a lot of space, and really gives protection to that bike.
That's a good idea. Good idea. I like that. I used the bubble wrap in the past, and then I think the first time I did it, because I was packing last minute and didn't have bubble wrap, I think I used like a bunch of dish rags and like did that around the exposed parts of the frame. And I think
Yeah.
the soft case that I used, the Epoch one, like it's got it comes with like foam to wrap around like the top tube and I think parts of the
Oh,
fork.
nice.
So not all of it is exposed, but some of it is. So you can use just
Sure.
kind of whatever other soft thing if you have to just kind of do it on the fly to wrap it up.
Yeah, I think I've also used bubble wrap. I've also used you know the Amazon packages that are like the small little thin bubble wrap ones. I've used
Oh yeah.
those before to try and like bubble
Mm-hmm.
wrap around it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, honestly, most of the time I just use whatever I have available. Now I bought some pipe insulation because I saw somebody else have it, and I was like, that's genius. It's super easy. It's like $20, and the whole thing is like fully insulated. It's great.
I'll just say when you mailed me, so I bought a bike from Sam earlier this year, and he mailed it to me. And dude, you just like wrapped up T-shirts and threw some tape around that thing. There was no insulation around that frame.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
is this a
There's just a bunch of
T-shirt? Should
towels.
I send should I send those back to him?
Yeah. Yeah. I just found a bunch of like spare like towel rags or whatever that got torn up in the clinic and just,
Yeah,
wash them. And then I'm
sent
like,
them
oh, here you
over.
go. Rags for the shop or whatever. And yeah, sent them over. Other really
It
important
worked.
things to, what's that?
I said it worked. So no harm, no foul.
Yeah. It, It worked. Perfect. Other random things too to think of when you're packing your bike. Please, please, please make sure you take off your rear derailleur. I've seen people who keep those on and they get crushed every single time. So please take off your rear derailleur. You can take off your chain if you can. That's a little bit easier. Normally your stem and handlebars will kind of pop off and you can either just take it off from the where the stem holds onto the fork, or you can also um, just take off where your handlebars sit on. Either way, pro tip and something that I got from some of those Team USA guys and gals is essentially if you take off your handlebars, take a little marker of some sort and mark the gap between where your stem clamps are. Mark that on your handlebar. And so then all you have to do is then the exact rotation up and down of your
Mm.
handlebar. And so you just get it right there, hold it right there, tighten it down, boom, done. So they never have to guess, and it's always in the same position every single time. I did not think of that. I was like, when I saw that, I'm like, that makes sense. I've been doing it wrong this whole
Mm-hmm.
time. But
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the tips that I got from Team USA and USA Triathlon as to like different things for packing your bike and when you pack your bike. But have you ever heard of that before? Where you
Yeah,
put just that little mark? Does
no,
that kind of make sense?
yeah, it makes plenty of sense, and that's a good idea to get that angle right because that makes a big difference. I was going to make the point of making sure your saddle height and your reach because those are things that you'd want to know when you're
Mm-hmm.
putting your saddle back together or your seat tube back in place. So make sure you have those measurements and you know how it was measured the first time, and so you can just replicate that when you're putting the bike back together.
Yeah, that and also too,
Or
those same guys will take those markers, draw it
yeah,
right where
mark it.
the seat, yeah, right where that seat post goes right into the seat stay, and essentially you're down to, or yeah, seat stay, and essentially you just put a little mark there, and then also on the rails of your saddle, they'll also put little
Mm-hmm.
marks on the rails of their saddle as well. So they'll put marks on the handlebars where the stem, essentially when that gap in the stem is. They'll put marks on the seat post where it enters into the frame, and they'll also put marks on the saddle rails as well. And those tend to be like, if you can get those, I don't know, 99% of the time you're going to get the exact same bike fit, which is great because you've been traveling and training on that, but you haven't necessarily been able to. You want to be able to replicate that for your race, I should say. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Um, any other bike packing or like packaging of your bikes? Like any other tips for that?
No, I don't think so.
Nada.
It's not that big of a deal.
All right.
These are good considerations, but it's pretty easy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Other things to keep in mind: figure out which airlines you're flying, and then also to take a look at their bike baggage fees. So, for example, currently, as we sit today, the following airlines do not have bike fees: Alaska Airlines, Delta Airlines, United Airlines, Southwest Airlines, and American Airlines currently do not have any bike fees beyond just what a normal checked bag is, right? So, say a checked bag is $30, then you just pay $30 to check your bike. There are other airlines out there. We'll just take, I think it was Spirit, for example. It's $100 if it's your bike, plus then you also have to pay the $30 baggage fee as well. So some of
Mm.
them tack on both. Some of them just charge you, oh, it's just $100 for a bike or whatever. But most of the time, if you fly those other airlines, Alaska, Delta, United, Southwest, or American, there's no baggage fee or no extra baggage fee for your bike, which is super nice. And keep in mind too that $100 fee is one way. So if you take a different airlines and say you take Frontier Airlines and they have $100 bike fee, I don't know what their bike fee is. Um, but then if you take that round trip, it's $200 extra. So keep that in mind when you look at buying tickets and like all that stuff, because that is one thing to definitely consider again. The other thing to consider is watching also to the weight limit on the baggage and what the maximum weight limit is for before you get hit with a like oversize or excess baggage fee. Most of the time, it's 50 pounds. Um, I don't know about you, Will, but I've been at the airport where I've weighed that thing and it's like 52 pounds, and I cracked that sucker open and something is going in my carry-on. Most of the time, it's like helmet and other things that are that
Yes.
are just kind of big and bulky. Yeah, shoes oftentimes will get you there. But that's another really important thing to look at. If you have status on any airlines, sometimes they waive those fees. Sometimes if you talk nice to the baggage handler, sometimes they waive those fees too. It all just kind of depends. But those are other things to consider when you're looking at airlines and which airlines to fly, and different things to look at when like packing your bike bag. Make sure you weigh your bag first, because it's a giant pain in the butt to open that up in the middle of the airport and then take out 2 pounds. Not that I know or anything, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've done that a few times.
Never had to do that, right? Of course not.
Never. All
All right.
right. Anything else about bikes?
No,
Are
that's.
you
I
ready
think
for a
that's it, man.
try? Try stuff.
Uh huh.
Okay. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Triathlon races. They are the most challenging. Why? Because they have the most amount of gear that you need to take. So you have the run gear, which we already talked about. Super easy. Run shoes, whatever. Done. Easy. Um, you have your bike stuff, which we just talked about. Easy enough. Still a little challenging. But now you have swim gear as well, because why not? Um, biggest thing for swimming that I've found make sure your swim gear is dry or as dry as possible before you pack it away. Um, they get really nasty. Those wetsuits get moldy and mildewy, and it's kind of gross. Now
Mm-hmm.
they have an
Mm-hmm.
antibacterial layer in them, but that doesn't mean though that that bacterial infested and algae infested lake or pool or whatever you just swam in doesn't get into that. It definitely doesn't mean that at all. So just make sure that you try and dry those out as much as possible uh, before you pack up for your race. And after your race, try and dry that suit, dry that wetsuit, turn it inside out. You know, make sure, get a fan on it or something like that. Just try and dry it out as best as possible, because if not, that's nasty smelling. And if for whatever reason that airlines loses your luggage and it's gone for 2 days instead of 5 hours, it's pretty rank, and everything else around it also is pretty rank. Um, so just kind of be aware of that. As soon as you get home, please unpack it, especially if it's wet, or if you get to a race and it's wet, please unpack it right away. Triathlon as well is making sure you have a list of gear and check it at least twice. I know when I did a lot of triathlons, including the 2 Ironmans that I did, I had a gear list. I made sure to check it. I made sure to go over it. I made sure to make sure that I wasn't missing any gear, because when you start to get to a triathlon, there's a lot of stuff that you need to bring and need to account for. Um, I know we talked about, the bike, you got to have tools, you got to have, potentially some spare tubes, you got to have hydration, you got to have nutrition, you have to have, your bike computer, you have to have, X, Y, and Z, a little mini pump. You might have a full floor pump too. Like all these different things, they all just add up. So make sure that when you go to a triathlon, that you have a list, and you either pull it off the internet, or you create a list that you've had, or get a list from a friend or something like that, because eventually you will forget something, and it is not the most fun thing in the world. Anything on that,
Yep.
Will? Anything about the triathlon gear?
But like you said, man, you definitely want a list. And I think you said it too, is like you can get some of these lists online if like you're newer to packing your gear up, because a lot of people will kind of go through these checklists just on race day anyway, or the day before, to make sure you have everything in order. So you can use that as a packing list. And I'm sure they have some for travel as well. If you just Google like triathlon travel list, and make sure that you have a list of everything that you need, because there's probably a couple things that you wouldn't think of, like you mentioned, pumps or chain lube, or uh, you know, uh, anything like that, anti-chafe cream, your nutrition, all the things. You kind of need to have it all on deck, just like you would at home. So a list makes that very easy to not forget anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, you really forget how much gear you accumulate when you do triathlon until you actually like have a list of it. And you're like, oh my gosh, I have a lot of gear. But
When you have it laid
no,
all out
that's
in front of
awesome.
you, you're like, holy crap. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of money I've spent. That too. But you know what? It's a hell of a lot of fun too, and it gives you an awesome experience. So, in my opinion, it's always worth it. But awesome. Any other thoughts about like traveling
Yeah.
to race and stuff like that? I know I have a few just of the flight, like few flight tips too, but go ahead and fire away if you have anything.
Nothing that we haven't said already. I would just say that I think that these like racecations or whatever people call them are a lot of fun. So it's just a great chance to like experience something new or a new place and tie it around an event that you've been training for. That being said, like it can be stressful if you're not used to doing it, but I wouldn't let that deter you, because it's stressful if you're not organized. But if you use the packing list, just kind of be prepared with packing a couple days before, and not rushing your time to get everything together once you land. Like it really is a very awesome way to experience new parts of the United States. Like I think those 2 trips we've taken to Portland are like two of the most favorite trips I've had just ever, because we just rode bikes every day for 4 or 5
Yeah.
hours, like 4 days in a row. It was just incredible.
Hard to beat
So
that.
well worth the stress. It is, and it was well worth the stress and the hassle, the money of like packing my bike and doing all that stuff. It was well worth it. So don't
Yeah.
let it deter you.
100%. Yeah. 100%. I've gone on vacations too where I've rented a bike. It's fun, but man, having your own bike, something that you're super familiar with and something that you've kind of like, I mean, I know me and you build bikes from scratch. We don't buy stock and just kind of let it be stock. We alter it in some way, shape, or form, whether it's wheels or group set or whatever. But but having your own equipment out there is so much nicer. It just makes into the experience because you're comfortable and you know what you're going to get and that kind of thing. Um, Flight tips too. These are a few things that I picked up from Team USA and the triathletes there and that kind of thing. Um, Biggest thing for flights, make sure that you hydrate and hydrate a lot. Um, Make sure that you're drinking lots of water on the plane because that air does get you really dry and dehydrated. That bottled oxygen does get you really dehydrated. So just make sure that you have lots of water, lots of liquids. Hydration is key on the plane. The other thing too is if you're going overseas, check and see what your time zone changes. The faster you can get used to that new time zone, the better you will race. Oftentimes, when I go on a lot of the Team USA triathlon trips, I will leave on a Monday, a Sunday, or a Monday, and then I'll leave on a Sunday or Monday, and essentially the race isn't until Saturday and Sunday. Most of the time, sometimes it's on Fridays, but most of the time it's on Saturday or Sunday or both. And so it gives you a whole week to try and accommodate and get used to that. And the sooner you can get on that time, that switch, the better it is. Both for performance and also to sleeping and your circadian rhythm as well. That's one thing that I've really noticed. Um, the last thing that I've noticed from my time with Team USA is make sure too that you also bring some food that makes you feel comfortable and at home and something that is familiar. I know when I traveled to South Korea with Team USA, the food there, good luck. You can't find anything really American. Maybe some Korean barbecue, but it's still different. And so just make sure I brought some snacks over and some things in my room where I could just kind of munch on them when I got hungry, and so I wasn't constantly trying to look for food of some way, shape, or form, and it wasn't a stress in that sense. So if I got hungry during the day, I could just grab a snack. That's been super helpful too when flying abroad for sure. But I think just a few things when we start talking about traveling and like races, especially with endurance athletes, it all makes a difference. Whether it's your performance or most of the time it's just your experience, you just feel so much better. It's a better
Mhm.
experience for you.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Totally agree with you.
Anything else, Will? Or else I think we'll wrap it
I
up.
don't think so, man. Yeah, I think we're good, dude.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for listening. We really appreciate you guys. Please, please, please tell a friend. Tell a friend about our podcast. We'd really appreciate it. That's how we can grow and that's how we can get this information out to more people. Of course, like and subscribe, whatever channel or source you're getting the podcast from. But more than anything, screenshot it, post it on social media, or send it directly to a friend if you found this info useful. That would be awesome. If you want to review us, that'd be even better. 5 stars are wonderful. If it's anything less than 5 stars, please let us know. Where's the best place for people to find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram is probably the best. You can get my personal Instagram is at Will Gonzaba, and then my clinic is at Almost Park Physio. That's OLMOSPARKPHYSIO.
Perfect. And you can find me at the Endurance Physio. The and Endurance have two E's, so it's THE and then another E for Endurance. Endurance Physio. So the Endurance Physio on Instagram. That's probably the best way to reach out. Feel free if you guys have any questions. We'd love to field them. Otherwise, comment away. Please share with a friend, and we will catch you guys next time. Peace.
Thanks, y'all.